Good evening, guys, and welcome out to Revolution. So this is examining TurretinFan's response concerning Revelation 16:5 by Nick Sayers. This is part 17. And so from the get-go, I just want to say that there was one thing that TurretinFan has proven me wrong on. It's not really about the Revelation 16:5 thing, but it was something that I thought that James White had not said. And so I thought that James White had sort of avoided the whole concept of speaking about 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10, and Acts chapter 16, I think it's verse 12 or verse 20, something like that. And so these were the two conjectural emendations that are in the Nestle Alarm text. Now, I was showing TurretinFan this video for quite a long time and saying, you're looking at the wrong video, watch this other video. And so he did. And lo and behold, in amongst all the details, there was James White saying, I don't follow those. And so it was quite a small little snippet, which I listened to that 3 times, that whole episode. And I didn't get it. I didn't hear it. And so obviously back in the day, I didn't hear it either. And in my thinking, I sort of assumed that James White was sort of avoiding the question, because then he starts bringing up Revelation 16:5, starts bringing up, King James only, they're cultic, they're this, they're that, and just sort of throwing dust in the air. And so, but I thought that he had not said that he rejects those Greek places, or the places where there's no Greek evidence, until 2019, when he was doing an hour-long dividing line Sunday school at a Bible college, and where he talks about the conjectural emendations, and then he said, I don't follow them, I follow the Tyndale House text. Now, for me, I thought that for 5 years he was just avoiding that topic. But TurretinFan, kudos to him, proved me wrong on that point. And so even though this is just sort of like a side issue talking about James White, it did become quite a major thing, because TurretinFan was pretty adamant that James White wouldn't have done that. And kudos to TurretinFan for knowing the position of James White well enough to dig his heels in there and go, no, he wouldn't have said that. And I was like, well, okay, there you go. I'll eat humble pie, and I'll say, well, TurretinFan got that thing correct. So what does that mean to this whole thing? Well, like I said, it doesn't really have any bearing on the whole concept of Revelation 16:5. What it does have bearing on is, in the book, I said that James White staunchly defends these readings. And so how would I reword that now? Well, I would say James White, I would probably say he didn't know about the readings until he was shown by Jeff Riddle. And then once he was shown the readings, he said that he rejected them. And so, so we will probably go through that a little bit more, because TurretinFan has done sort of like half an entire video on this, showing what James White said. And so I'll go through that. I don't mind eating humble pie. But one thing it does show me is that things do get missed. I've sort of committed myself oftentimes to going through from the beginning, like going through debates, and say like the Textual Confidence Collective videos, as well as some of Mark Ward's material and James White debates and things like that. And it's interesting when you go through from the beginning, like sometimes they might have even started the debate and you're already talking for hours and hours and doing 2 or 3 episodes. Because it's in those details where, you correct other people, you correct your own position, and you find little nuggets of information or little crumbs that sort of build up to a cookie. And so I guess the whole thing is with this, if TurretinFan hadn't been talking about this, I wouldn't have gone and investigated this further. I wouldn't have dug my heels in, and he dug his heels in, and then I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, good point on that video. Kudos to you. I'm wrong there. But I guess what it does, it shows you the value of doing these type of videos, because then you're like, okay, that wasn't really correct. And so then you have to eat a bit of humble pie. But where does this leave everything? So at the end of the day, James White said that he basically didn't know about this other conjectural emendation, the Ook, in specifically the Ook in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10, which a lot of people have pointed out and said, well, someone who is saying that they're the guru of the critical text, they should know this. And so Jeff Riddle knew this. And I'd noticed that today, I think it was today or yesterday, James White's actually done another video against Jeff Riddle. And so Jeff Riddle's talking about 260 places in the NA29 where there's going to be changes. And I didn't really go through it. I just sort of skimmed through it because I thought he might have actually talked about me. I thought maybe TurretinFan, threw in the video and, sort of like, let's humiliate Nick Sayers, but that didn't happen. But at the end of the day, Jeff Riddle's usually correct on this. He was correct back in 2014 to mention these. And so, so at the end of the day, basically, James White didn't know what was happening with these conjectural emendations. Jeff Riddle schooled him on these. James White got the wrong idea and didn't know what he was talking about. Then James Snap Jr. Corrected him and pointed him in the right direction. And then he did a response video. Now, in amongst that, that's where TurretinFan has pointed out that he said, I don't go with those readings. Now, it was just sort of like one sentence, I don't follow those Greek readings. Now, I missed that in 3 times that I watched that or listened to that video. And I guess in a way, if I had seen, like, just say I was an outsider looking in, I'd go, well, okay, yeah, I can understand you going through that video. He's talking about a lot of technical things and repeating things and bringing up Revelation 16:5 and all this other stuff, and just sort of being very technical. So you could have missed it. It wasn't like a big crescendo where he's like, okay, a big drum roll, and it's like, hey guys, I reject these. And I guess the thing is, the reason that I had pointed out in my other videos that James White had rejected those in 2019 when he was doing an expose video on me was because I went through those videos almost immediately and went through every, I'd play James White for, 30 seconds and then respond and then play it again and then respond. And so it was like, that's where I was like, he's finally admitted that, these are conjectures. Because as far as I was concerned, he wasn't admitting to that and was just sort of, every time conjecture was brought up, it was like, Revelation 16:5. But it does make you wonder why, when I brought up the Ethiopic with the Revelation 16:5 future reading in it, that James White sort of rejected it, because it does say in his book that it's not in the Ethiopic, and I proved it was. And it just makes you wonder why he keeps saying that that's a conjectural emendation, but then he does have a difference with people in the academy about what a conjecture is. And so we can see that, Bruce Metzger and Bart Ehrman, they say if you have any versional evidence, then it's not a pure conjecture. So I guess in the apparatus, in the 27th edition, they don't have a CJ if it has versional evidence. And so if it's just purely a conjectural emendation, then they have CJ there. So, but as far as I had known, And I guess it's usually from James White rejecting versional evidence for Revelation 65, was that James White was really only interested in what the Greek says. And if it wasn't in the Greek, then he would label it as a conjectural emendation. So I sort of go through that in my book. But I guess at the end of the day, that section of my book, I do talk about Jeff Riddle, James Knapp Jr., and all that other stuff. So instead of me saying, okay, in 2019, James White said that he doesn't follow those conjectural emendations in his text, I should change it to in 2014 he admitted it. So that would alleviate James White from that 5-year period that I was saying, well, for 5 years he wasn't really even talking about that sort of stuff. So yeah, at the end of the day, that's what's happened there. So we're sort of halfway through video number 15. So let's just begin here. So we're looking at Beatus of Libanus, I'm pretty sure, Libana. So let's go through and see what TurretinFan's got to say here. So I might just go back a tiny bit.
A triadic present, and it's not as though it has a triadic declaration at all. It doesn't. It has a biadic declaration.
And so this is one of the things that I've constantly pointed out with criticisms of what I'm talking about. I'll show where there's a future reading, and people go, well, yeah, it might have the future reading, but it doesn't have this other reading in it, and this other thing in it, and this other thing over here. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. If it does have those things, I might mention, yeah, they're in there as well. But it just seems like that's the only thing that gets focused on. And so, imagine if it said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Or let's look at a real time variant. John chapter 1, verse 18, when it has monogenes weos, only begotten son, or monogenes theos, only begotten God. So imagine if we were looking at just those two words, or we were just looking at the one word, weos or theos. Now, if I went through and found weos in 1,000 manuscripts, and I found theos in 10 manuscripts or whatever, and I was looking at, or just say TurretinFan was doing that, and he was trying to stick up for theos, and I went, hang on, what's before monogenes theos? What about the word before that? And the three words down from that, and other places are surrounding that term. And so just going to everything around. And so I found this with the comma. I was talking about the comma Johannian one time, and a guy was like, oh, what about verse 6, where it has the extra spirit there in the Vulgate and all the rest of it? And it's like, well, yeah, that's another study. Can't we deal with what we're talking about? So this is one of the things, and I've sort of found this with Stephen Boyce as well. You're going to the Kurios, and it's like, oh, see, it's not there. And going to saying, well, it should have the 1, 2, 3 there. And it's like, well, yeah, it's got 2. But to me, that's actually more evidence, because it's got the past and the future, but the middle of the is taken out, which is one of the most important aspects, because is equivalent to I am, or to be. And so to have Sanctus still there, to me, that points to it wasn't just a Somenos that was carrying that Nomina Sacra, but other parts of the Triadic Declaration were replaced with Sanctus, and so, or had Sanctus around that, or say just say it was a marginal gloss. Obviously this is pure speculation, because we only have 4 manuscripts before the 10th century. So just say it was a marginal gloss, and it had maybe a little asterisk in the middle of the name of God there, the past, present, and future. And perhaps it was to do with the past, perhaps it was to do with the present, perhaps it was to do with the future. But we see this wrapped up in all of these. And so, say for example here, I was just looking at this earlier. So this is the Arabic Bible here in Walton's Polyglot, and when it's translated into the Latin, it just has eternal. So it has justus est tu eterne. So it just means you are just like the eternal one. So that eternity encompasses, like, just say I was to explain God, I'd say, well, God was, God is, and God is to come. You know, he's eternal, and that's exactly what it says in Revelation 65 in the Arabic, which is quite interesting. So to me, it's the aspect that I'm clearly looking at in my book is the shall be aspect, so the future aspect. But if I was to go through these other ones, okay, so what does the eternal cover? And it's interesting that that's the translation in the French edition of the Geneva. I'm pretty sure it's the Geneva that Theodore Beza worked on. So he just has, you are righteous, eternal. And so it doesn't have the past, present, future, but the eternal, it's wrapped up with the past, present, and future. So it's quite interesting. So, but let's let TurretinFan continue.
So it may be, and it's hard to know because it's not in the original language, but this may just be a witness to the Nestle Island 28 text, even though the tenses don't match.
So that's where, in my last video, I was sort of like shaking my head going, man, that is not a witness to the Nestle Island 28 text. It is a witness to the Textus Receptus. And I mean, that's just like me saying TurretinFan takes me to task by saying, holy, there is a type of nomina sacra that's been put there because of the name of Jehovah. And he's like, well, Nick's saying that all the manuscripts, they have this holy thing. So if that's a nomina sacra, when you unfold it, it's got the full triadic declaration there. And the holy becomes sort of redundant. He takes me to task over that. And it's like, well, that's not dealing with reality, But here he is saying, well, this future reading really isn't the future reading. It's probably just a mistranslation of the Nestle Alarm or the majority text where it has the past and the present. And they've just put a future reading on top of it just because who knows? You know what I mean? And so he's on one side of his mouth, he's criticizing me for and I think I've made a very strong claim that this is a name, that this is a sacred name, the sacred name. And this is the place in the Bible where it's got this sacred name in it. And so to have Sanctus there, it's purely understandable. But, he's sort of like, oh, no, it's just when you find evidence for that, early church witnesses, it's just a mistake. They just made a mistake, but there's just no proof of that, So anyway, let's let him continue.
And that may be a translational decision to not correspond to the original Greek's tense. It's hard to know for sure. Now, maybe we'll have a chance and see if there's a way to resolve this. Is this a Spanish peculiarity of favoring some other tenses or something like this? I don't think that that's an answer that's going to pop out at us right away. I don't think we're going to immediately find something like that. It'd be very helpful. I don't think we'll find it. I think this originated outside of Spain, and it might very well have originated somewhere in Africa. Tychonius was...
And so we're sort of like, it comes from Spain, so it's not really that good or something like that. It's like, I don't understand why that would make a huge difference.
Carthaginian, I think. If indeed this text did come from Tychonius, from Carthage or North Africa, and it's a pre-Vulgate Latin text, and if that's what Beatus is working from, these are now speculation. It's speculation Nick is willing to go down, but it is speculation. But if it's correct, and it might be, then that suggests that this North African Old Latin text, the pre-Vulgate text of North Africa, that it had this reading, qui fuisti et futuris as sanctus.
And so, but that is a logical conclusion. Like if you just do a Google search of Tychonius and just go through what the consensus is among scholars, they're like, well, this, although we've lost Tychonius, this can be restored through looking at Beatus of Libana. There's a few other guys who have written commentaries as well, and I've been examining some of their things. It's quite interesting. But Beatus of Libana was definitely someone who was who they go through to get to Tychonius. And so it's not my idea. It's just that's information that's there. I mean, it's just good. You can Google it. It's there. It's pretty straightforward.
A biotic declaration with the past future and coupled with holy. O Holy One, Sanctus. As opposed to a biotic declaration, which are and which has been Holy One. So there's some difference. It is a different reading. And I think this is a point where we have to allow the facts to be the facts. It would be lovely if Beatus just lined up perfectly with the tenses that are.
So you notice it's no acknowledgement that it has the future reading. It's like, well, no, it has to match up with every word in that verse. But see, the thing is, that's my whole point, is these words are muddled up in lots of different texts, which shows you that it's not just one word that's muddled. And, you know, it's someone else. Oh, that's just muddled. That's just muddled. No, here it's not muddled. The equivalent to a someone else is there. So something else is muddled. And so that's where you have to think, well, if this whole, you know, past, present, and future is a name, and perhaps they've got a marginal gloss with a little asterisk or maybe a line above it or something like that, and it says Sanctus or Sanctus next to it or whatever, just to show, hey, this is holy. That makes sense. And then people like, we'll have to contract this name. But it's a huge name. How do you contract it without causing confusion? But here you see a different type of contraction. So, but he's like, no, it has to match up exactly, you know, well, the future tense matches up exactly. And so that's the main point. So that's the main thing that I'm looking at. If I wanted to look at all the aspects of the triadic declaration in all versions, and, you know, which have the past, the present, and the future, or which just have the past and present, or which have just past and future, it's like, well, that's a whole another different issue. I'm not against looking at all that, but that doesn't negate anything that I've said in my book, because that is the reason why I'm saying that the Greek manuscripts only have the two there. That's the reason why this has two there, which are different from the Greek manuscripts. So to me, that is more evidence that the Sanctus is there to show that if there's something missing there, that there's a reason for it. And the Sanctus, meaning holy, would show that it's a holy name, because it is a name. It is the holiest name of God in the New Testament, probably apart from I am. When Jesus says I am, it's unmistakable. He says I am that. Now imagine if I am, you couldn't say that, or, you know, and it just had like a symbol or holy there or whatever. It's like, we know it's a holy name. And so that's the whole argument that I'm pointing at. So to say, okay, this only has the past and the future, it has the future reading. It's the present now that's missing. So that's got to be, you got to be able to explain that, not just, oh, it's just a mistranslation.
They're found in the Greek, but it doesn't. It actually has different tenses than the Greek has. But and there is a challenge. How do we account for that? Do we say that Beatus, the Greek behind Beatus Latin, was past and future, but no present, and the word holy?
No one's saying that. What we would, at the end of the day, this could have been something that was in Latin. See, the thing is, with only 4 manuscripts before the 10th century, you know, we would be looking at things that are older. And so if this goes back to Tychonius, perhaps this is an older reading, but perhaps the Greeks knew that this was it's got the past and the future. And it's like, well, I think people will understand it better if it's got the past, the present, and then Sanctus, so that they're not saying the holy name there. And so, but perhaps the Latin people who were transcribing this knew. It's like it's sort of assumed that it was a mistake. And I guess I've assumed that too by sort of in my book saying, people throughout time sort of lost the meaning of it. But that's why I said at one stage, perhaps the Greeks knew exactly what this meant. And, I know TurretinFan was like, oh, that's absolutely pure speculation. Yeah, well, that's why I say perhaps. But there are things that they know about. Like if I was to talk to, say, a Byzantine scribe, he could point out 10 things on a page that I have no understanding about with manuscripts. And we're talking about, symbols that point to Eusebian canon. We're talking about, certain types of readings that have different endings, that have, variant readings in them, certain things of Byzantine tradition that can sort of end up in a text. Sometimes just saying etc. The KTL, K.T.L, things like that, where you're thinking, what sort of word is that? But it just means etc. or so on. And they could point out 10 things that most people just have no idea and don't know, just on a single page. And so perhaps they knew about this and what it meant, and the significance of it. Because, see, we're dealing in a generation today. I mean, most people know more about Simpsons episodes and South Park than they do about the name of God here in Revelation 16:5. Almost everyone I've talked to has no idea that there is the name of Jehovah at Revelation 16:5. And when they find out, it's like, oh wow, that's amazing, but then it's like, oh, that's a King James TR reading. Oh no, we have to fight against that. And it's like, no, the reformers went with it, and they saw it fit in perfectly with the text, with the other triads, the other four that have occurred, and this was the purest form of it. And so anyway, let's just continue.
The Holy One, if we say that, then that's a new reading. This is a new reading that's different from what the TR has, and it's different from what the original Greek was.
But it has the future form. You have to admit that. I could find, even like James White looking at 2 Peter 3:10, he was looking at the word before, it was different. He was looking at the word after, and that was different in some other manuscripts. And I'm pretty sure I looked it up on a conjectural, maybe I've actually got it here, a database of conjectural emendations. No, I don't have it there. But on the Munster website by Jan Krans, and it just pretty much like the first 4 or 5 had nothing to do with the Ook reading, but then it had the Ook reading, and it would be a different beginning, a different word at the end, but they all had the Ook reading in the middle. I mean, if you were to point out where the Ook reading appears in these conjectures, would I spend all my time going through what's at the beginning and what's at the end? No, I'm specifically looking at Somenos, because that's what James White says is not in the text. So, and this, like I said, I think TurretinFan was sort of like, oh, Nick Sayers was saying it's a straw man argument. Well, it sort of is if, we're looking up monogenes, weos, if we're looking up other words that are in that verse, or that come afterwards, it's like that's all great, and we want to look at everything, but you must admit it either says weos or theos there. So what does this say? Does it have the future or doesn't it? It does. So regardless of what you say about everything else, it has the future reading. Case closed. That's all I'm saying. If you want to say that I'm saying all this other stuff, oh, it's got the trade declaration, oh, it's got this, it's got that, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if that sanctus is a nomina sacra, then you would have to admit that the name of Jehovah is the past, present, and future. This has two aspects of it, which would be strange to have two aspects of God's name, and to have sanctus there would point to a type of holy or sacred name, because it is a name. So anyway.
So this poses a... Now, Nick calls this, he says, this incorporates both readings. But it doesn't incorporate both readings. What it does is it's a different reading from the original Greek, and it's a different reading from the TR. The similarity to the TR is that it has the future tense, which is also something similarly found here in the TR.
So notice he's saying, I said it incorporates both readings. Now, when you read through it, exactly what I said, it was pretty clear that I was talking about the reading of shall be and the reading of holy. But he's like, oh, it incorporates both readings. So this is why I'm saying this is straw man argumentation, because he's saying it's not really. It doesn't have the triadic declaration there. It doesn't have the past, the present, and the future. It doesn't have Lord. It doesn't have this other thing. It doesn't. And it's like, I'm saying esomenos and holy. And I clearly spell that in my book. So let's read exactly what I said. And so let's have a look. I'm pretty sure I say it maybe down the bottom here. Fourth century reading of Esomenos. Okay. Must be up a little bit further. Okay. Where am I seeing both readings? You've probably already seen it. Both readings. Where are we? Okay. Da-da-da. Okay, I know I've written both readings because I read it last time. So I'm going to have to type both. Here we are. It was right at the top. And so it incorporates both readings. And then look, I wrote and will be and the Holy One. So I'm pretty clear. And see, TurretinFan's reading this, but he only reads half of my sentence. Then he says, well, where's the triadic declaration? Where's this other thing? Where's it? And it's like, I'm pretty clear here. It incorporates both readings and will be and Holy One. So let's just go back to the video. We'll rewind it a little bit. With that knowledge,
the difference is it tense reading from the TR. It's a different reading, but it doesn't incorporate both this. This poses a... Now, Nick calls this, he says, this incorporates both readings, but it doesn't incorporate both readings.
Okay, so I was clearly saying, you know, the future reading will be, shall be, esomenos, and holy. You know, so I'm saying it's got both of those readings in it, which are the two readings that, you know, James White talks about in his book.
What it does is it's a different reading.
Now it's like, well, it doesn't have those. It's a different reading. Okay, so why not read the full sentence?
From the original Greek, and it's a different reading.
So it's different from the original Greek.
Reading from the TR.
And it's different from the TR. So instead of reading what I actually said, it's like just read half the sentence, you create a straw man that I've never said. I never said it was absolutely identical to the TR in every aspect of that verse. I'm saying it's got the future reading that's in the TR. And I'm saying it's got the Sanctus reading as well.
The similarity to the TR is that it has the future tense, which is also
exactly.
So something similarly found here in the TR. The differences are that
and now he's saying something similar that's found in the TR, where in the last video we were seeing that he was trying to make a huge deal about et futurus est and et qui eris, saying, oh, these aren't equivalent, but clearly if you examine these are synonyms and are both translatable into English as will be in modern English and shall be in early modern English.
TR was replacing Sanctus with et qui eris, and it doesn't do that. It keeps Sanctus while having et futurus est.
Yeah, the future reading with the old nomina sacra type thing there.
So from the standpoint of someone saying that this arose through an error by a scribe, if the thought was that this esomenos should have been there, esomenos, but instead it says, O Holy One, instead, because of a scribal error, if that's the way we're going, then this is not very supportive of that explanation. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a scribal error. I would say that either the underlying Greek has different variants where sometimes it's a somenos and that is changed to osios because of the nomina sacra there, and so that would that went into the Byzantine text and sort of got rubber stamped quite a lot. Then this would be like a Western type of reading, the past and the future with the nomina sacra issue there as well. And so instead of having the 3 parts, it's only got 2, but we're looking at the is part. And so we would have to look at all the different languages, all the different regions. And so, like I was saying, in the Arabic, it just has eternal, which encompasses the past, present, and future. But even in that one, I don't think it has holy in it. So that's quite interesting. So it says electissimi. Okay, so let me just type that in. Electissimi. Button. Okay, I think I'm better off going to translate rather than trying to buy some jewelry for the price of a car. Very chosen. It's very interesting. It's sort of like the word elect. Very chosen. Okay. Just try to find that page again. Here we are. No, that's not it. So Revelation 16:5 here. So basically it says just, or you are just the eternal, very chosen, because you have judged this. So there's no real holy there, is there? So you'd have to say the eterne in the Arabic, and what you got to understand is Theodore Beza, he did a Latin version with Janius, who was an expert in Arabic, and Tremelius, who was an expert in Hebrew and Syriac. And so knowing that the Arabic has eterne, that's quite interesting. And that fits in with what I'm saying. It's to TurretinFan, it's just another variant that you go, oh, I don't know, it's mistranslated. How do you explain that? You know, sort of thing. Anyway, let's just continue on.
if the explanation, now that's not the preferred explanation for Nick. Nick says that there was an awareness that this is the sacred name, and that therefore the scribes used a nomina sacra form and put sanctus, or the of course the Greek equivalent, put sanctus in there in place of the future form of Somenos. That they did it deliberately, not as an error, but they deliberately did that in order to make it a nomina sacra. But if that's the case, that is not followed here, unless Nick is.
And that would strengthen my case, because it's not followed just on the future form of it, but followed on the form that's talking about the is, which is probably the strongest part of the verse, the middle part, the part that is to come, the I am, the other side of I am, when you got a second person singular form there.
Is now going to have to create another kind of nomina sacra, one where the scribe replaces the present tense form, which is missing, which he replaces that one with the O Holy One, and uses that as his basis. But again, that's even harder for Nick to justify, because of his theory is that this is placed at the end because that's the end of the phrase.
Well, my point is that it's placed at the end. It's obviously placed at the end of the Greek manuscripts, but who knows where that was in the earlier manuscripts? Like I've mentioned, it could have been a marginal gloss, could have been written above the whole name, Sanctus in brackets or something, or Sanctus maybe could have appeared at the beginning and at the end, with some sort of symbol to point people to that, or perhaps. I'm not sure, because we don't, this is all speculation, because like I said, we've only got 4 manuscripts that contain Revelation 16:5 before the 10th century. So we've got to go and look at how people were using and utilizing the name of Jehovah, I am, and also looking at the early church witnesses and writings, and looking at people like Beta Supply Banner, who were using the works of Tychonius in 380. And looking at those things and examining those things to see whether they match up with what we have in the manuscripts. Like, to me, this just makes perfect sense. It's like seriously, with Beatus of Libana. And so this is one of the things, like when I debated Stephen Boyce on this, he was focused on the triadic declarations. Oh, the Ethiopic doesn't have the triadic declaration. This doesn't have the triadic declaration. And I'm like, and like I've said many, many times, he was saying, you're claiming it's got the triadic declaration. I was like, no, I've never claimed that. And so I went back through my book, went back through all the videos that I'd done. And I was like, I've never said that. And so I told him, hey, look, just letting you know that was wrong. He's like, no, you admitted it on the debate. You admitted it. I was like, no, I said I was sorry if that happened. And so, but looking at the triadic declaration, looking at the full expansion, and looking at where there's these partial expansions because Sanctus is there. Because notice you've got Sanctus with these partial things. So usually you've got the past, the present. Here you have the past and the future. To me, it just makes perfect sense that this is part of that type of nomina sacra issue. So anyway, I'll just move on from there. But if I was to look at the full triadic declaration, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that you got the name of Jehovah cut short. Why is it cut short? You have to explain why the name of Jehovah is cut short there. You have to explain why or how it's the future form is cut short with Sanctus or Osios there in the Greek, but here in the Latin, clearly it's the middle form, the present tense form that is missing, and then you have Sanctus there. So to me, this is showing that scribes, they weren't worried about sort of where they put the key indicator that this is a nomina sacra by having Sanctus there, but they were Sometimes they're putting on the end, sometimes they're putting it at the end to do with the middle. It'll be interesting to find more and more manuscripts as we go along, and to line these up with what they're saying about the past, the present, and the future. So let's continue.
And he's replacing the end on the basis that this is the way to do it with a nomina sacra. So why would you have such another Greek basis upon which to create this Latin? And likewise, why would Latin do nomina sacra differently if that was the plan? So in short, although this is different, this reading is not the original Greek reading because of the difference.
But like I said, before the 10th century, 4 manuscripts. And I showed you where 3 of them are in disagreement, 3 of the earliest ones.
Census here. It differs by using past future instead of present past, but it has the sanctus, it doesn't have the domine, and it looks more similar to the original Greek. And the question is whether this is just a translational difference, just like the omitting the which is a translational difference. Probably.
I don't think which matters, because if all of these translate into other languages and into English, you would have which, was, and is to come. You wouldn't have correct English to say which was and which is to come. Usually the like an os or something that would translate to who or which would be redundant in English. You wouldn't need that over and over again. You wouldn't need like a chi conjunction. Sometimes you need it when it's talking about coupling things, and when the chi is more strongly talking about a definition like also or even or something like that. But when it's just using and this happened and that happened, we can see in perhaps in the King James they might do that, but in modern TR editions, MEV, New King James, many times the ands are dropped, and you just have like a name with an and then a whole bunch of other names with commas. Or you might have at the end and so and so, or something like that, instead of 15 names with ands in between them.
Not making a difference in the underlying text, or not. So anyway, that's where we're ending up with Beatus. It is a witness to the text. It's of interest to Nick because it has this futurus s, but just because it has futurus s doesn't mean it supports the reading that's on the TR.
Okay, so it's got the future reading, but it doesn't support the future reading in the TR. Why not? Why not? This is just, to me, it's just amazing that we're looking at everything else except for the actual issue that I pointed out in the book, that this is equivalent to a somenos, that the et futurus s is synonymous with et qui eris, and it's the future form that translates to and shalt be. The reading in the King James, the reading in the Dutch Statenvertaling, the reading in the Greek of Beza. And why can't you just say, yes, it has the future reading? What's stopping you from doing that? That's the facts.
In fact, it's hard to understand how, if this were the original, how this would arise from that.
Now, he's saying if this was original, and he's got Latin here. Latin is a translation. It's like English translations. You can get the Geneva Bible, King James Bible, put them side by side. They can be saying pretty much the same thing, but they can use different words, and so it happened in Latin. We're looking at, 2,000 years of translations in these, or 1,500 years up into the Reformation. It's a lot. There's a lot of changes that can happen in language. We look at English just for the last 400 years in the King James, and we see that there are, we have archaic words and things like that. Just in the last 50 years, certain words have changed. And so I just can't see the point in saying, well, this has to be absolutely identical in the Latin. Well, if these are independent witnesses of Greek translated into Latin, well, they perhaps there's certain eras where certain words meant certain things in a stronger fashion. But then, that died out and it became stronger to say it another way. And then perhaps that died out and went back to this. And perhaps there's another way of saying it as well. And synonyms, especially when you're looking at languages, Latin is considered a dead language, even though they speak that in the Vatican City. And a lot of people do know Latin in a sense of they're bibliophiles and they read books in Latin, but they probably could never speak it. Every language has that type of change. You wouldn't expect to see Tyndale agreeing with Wycliffe or agreeing with the King James or agreeing just with the Geneva Bible. You would expect there to be changes, like, say, congregation and church and things like that meaning the same thing. They were both talking about, King James is talking about the same thing, Wycliffe's talking about the same thing, Tyndale's talking about the same thing, but they were using different words and different terms due to what their audience was, due to their mindset, due to the mindset and the education level of the audience, and their understanding of what that's defined as. And so et futuris est, that was written for a particular audience, equi eris, written for a particular audience, but they are synonymous.
It's easy to see how from this could arise, because it could be a translational emphasis that instead of saying which are and how.
So it's easy to see how this can be mistranslated as that. Not that you have this with that missing and Sanctus putting there, making it a nominus sacra. What, you can't see that? You can't see, it says omit here, meaning it's not there. Sanctus is in this one, okay? So you have the present, the past, and the future here, and you have the past and the future here, but no present, but you have Sanctus. So wouldn't it make sense that you can see how this is basically saying the same as that, but only for those who understand and know the sacred name of God, who know the full name of the sacred name of God, and who understand that the triadic declarations beforehand were pointing to that, but were not as pure in a sense of being exactly verbatim what the name of I am and Jehovah mean.
Have been, to say have been and will be, especially because the present tense is already used in justus es, and someone might want to somehow complete the set of tenses, and we'll see why that might be attractive in a moment. So it's more understandable that this could be thought of as a different way of translating the same Greek exemplar, or that it could just be a deliberate modification to fix what was perceived to be an error. But whichever it is, it's much easier to explain this based on this than it is to explain this based on this.
Because if you believe that it has the present and the past, but they mistranslated it as the future, then it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, right.
This would require that you drop the present tense, that you drop the Lord, even if we acknowledge that the Lord part wasn't original, which Nick won't acknowledge.
See, notice it's like going back to the Lord, going back to, and none of this is acknowledging the plain fact that it has a future reading. And so this is why it's so frustrating, because wouldn't it be better for TurretinFan to say, hey, this does have the future reading in it, and looks like, case closed. Nick's said it had the future reading in it. It's what he says in his book. It does. Here it is, the future reading. And then he can talk about all this sort of stuff, but he's simply not admitting that it's got the future reading. When people who work or have worked and been legends in their field in textual criticism, like Hermann Hoskier, he's straight away admitting this is a future reading. It's obvious. It's obvious to anyone who works in the field of textual criticism that this is a future reading. But TurretinFan's saying it's not a future reading, it's a mistranslation. And so how can I show him any evidence of this future reading, of the reading of Isomenos, when he's just going to say, well, that got mistranslated as a future reading? So this is what we face with the Comma Johanneum as well. When we see, say, like Origen saying the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit, which is very distinct. It's not Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit. In that particular order, in the book of Psalms, he mentions that. And we show people, and straight away they're like, yeah, all he's doing is saying, yeah, Matthew 28 verses 19 and 20. He's just sort of quoting that, but he just said word instead. It's like, yeah, but it's saying the exact words that appear in John chapter 1, verse 7. So wouldn't that be a witness to that? No, it's not a witness to that. And you can't say that. In fact, you're desperate. It's like is TurretinFan just going to say, yeah, this has the future reading? He's not saying that, which is, it's sort of like, well, okay, so if we show you evidence, you'll just dismiss it and say it's not evidence. At least admit it's evidence. You can have this having evidence there and still reject. You still reject it. You know what I mean? But at least admit it's evidence. I mean, I would never just turn around, like say where it says monogenes theos. I think that's a Gnostic reading that came in, and if you understand the whole controversy that was around the monogenes theos, you know that it's a Gnostic reading that's crept into the text. But either way, there are manuscripts that say monogenes theos. I'm not going to say no. They actually say weos there. No, it's just been translated wrong or whatever. I'm not going to fight against it. That's what it says. The TurretinFan's fighting tooth and nail. No, it's not the future form. It's like it is the future form. It's not a mistranslation. You're just making that up.
Knowledge. But even if we did, you still have to drop the present tense and add in a sanctus at the end. Again, it doesn't make sense as this being the exemplar from which this results.
If you know that this is the sacred name of God, if you were Jewish, you read through that and you went, hang on, this is exactly the name of Jehovah. And they're doing nomina sacra on the name of Jesus, the name of God, Lord, other places. Most of the places where Lord is, where that's equivalent to the tetragrammaton a lot of the time. So here they're like, well, what do we do? Let's shorten it. Let's contract it like that the first ever nomina sacra did with concerning the name of Jehovah and the theophoric names.
In short, although it's a witness, it's not as helpful a witness to Nick's reading as I think Nick has seen it to be.
So although all I've said was that it has both readings, it has the future reading and it has the holy there, TurretinFan's like, it's not a helpful witness to Nick. Why not? It's got the reading of Isomenos, equivalent to Isomenos. It is equivalent to Isomenos. You would have to admit that. It's the future reading that's equivalent to shall to be, that's in the King James. And you have to admit that it's not covering up Isomenos, or it's not a replacement. The Sanctus there seems to be pointing to the middle part taken out here. Or if you don't believe that, it's got Sanctus there in your text, but it has the middle part taken out. Why is the middle part taken out all of a sudden? You can't explain the rise of this text, or I can. My methodology explains the rise of all these variants in there. Well, yours doesn't. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, the facts are, it says the future. It has the shall be reading in it, and you won't acknowledge that. Where true text critics like Herman Hoskier acknowledge that.
But it is a witness that has some value.
Okay, some value. So we've got a little bit of an admission, some value. Let's just see if there's a caveat here.
In this discussion, it's something that we need to consider as an additional variant in addition to the Greek variants. There's this Latin variant that exists. So I think we talked a little bit in the previous episode about a Sahidic variant at 2 Peter 3:10. I don't think that we should put much weight in something that is a variant that only exists in Latin. But in any event, that is what it is. That leads us, though, to our next. Oh, I could scroll down here. I have a number of interesting pieces. Here's another manuscript. You can see Eustace S.
Eustace S. Qui fuisti est futurus est, et futurus est, and then it has I'm pretty sure the Sanctus in a nomen sacriform.
Qui fuisti, etc. There. This, by the way, be very careful when you look at English translations in texts that are not designed to be focused on the work of translation. Let me zoom in a bit here. You can see this is a copy of the corresponding text that was supposed to be translating this. And the translation provided was this. It says, "Thou art just, O Lord, who art and wast, O Holy One." It's like, wow, that's exactly the Greek original. But actually, it's just that for whatever reason, they corrected the text to the actual original Greek text. Presumably, they didn't think it's that important to exactly follow the underlying Latin. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting to see. There's more here. Here's another illustration. This is the third angel, again, pouring out on the water. Another. I thought it was interesting to see. There's more here. Here's another.
Sorry about that.
I just thought it was interesting to see. There's more.
Okay, so we have et futurus est, sanctus qui judicarum, judicur. Yeah, I'm not sure what that says in Latin, but yeah. For you judge righteously. So I guess that's judged, yeah.
Here's another illustration. This is the third angel. Again, pouring out on the waters. You can see this is a little bit different from the image that Nick had provided. Oh, here's some more discussion of the Spanish text, meaning the text. You'll see that there's discussion of the Primasius text, but also that some theories about how this text may have come in, and you'll see it says the same features.
Well, as far as I know, the Primasius text is in the 6th century. So that would be pure Latin. Because I'm pretty sure it was Latin up until about the 6th century. Then it adopted the Iconian Spanish adaptations. And then just after Beatus of Libana, the first sort of Spanish manuscripts started to show up. But we haven't really seen why that's an issue. It's like, it's like when people say, "Oh, that's the Koine Greek era, and that's the ancient Greek era, and that's the Byzantine Greek era, and that's the modern Greek era," and well, sometimes they're saying exactly the same thing. The morphology and syntax of Greek hasn't changed that much for about 2,000 years. Yes, ancient Greek is different, but sometimes you have words that say the same thing 2,000 years ago, and so that's got to be taken into consideration.
That characterize the text quoted in the commentary are found in the Spanish text of the Apocalypse, which Beatus used as the base of his work. And there's persistence of the old strata, which are overlaid here and there by Vulgate deposits. So sometimes it's corrupted by the Vulgate, but a lot of times it's the older text. So he says the confluence of the Roman text and the Spanish text produced a strange confusion, which is everywhere apparent. It's interesting to read. Anyway, kind of fascinating to read. Here's another.
Okay, well, let's just read through this. It is quite possible that these two quotations, especially the latter, are from an uncanonical source. Their occurrence, however, among so many canonical quotations, 245 in all, lends them much greater interest than they would if they had been found in another setting. The same features that categorize the text quoted in the commentary are found in the Spanish text of the Apocalypse, which Boyce used as the base of his work. There is the same persistence of the old strata, which are overlaid here and there by Vulgate deposits. Some chapters seem less revised than others, and the amount of revision seems to vary sporadically and for no reason, apparently, except the caprice of the reviser. The confluence of the Roman text with the Spanish text produced a strange confusion which is everywhere apparent. Or, to use another illustration, it was like the sewing of many new patches on an old garment, with the result that where patches were put on the original text was badly and sadly rent.
Spanish text produced a strange confusion, which is everywhere apparent. It's interesting to read.
Okay, some marks of the Spanish text. An added value is given to our text by the fact that our Old Latin witnesses for the Apocalypse are so few and late. The Fleury palimpsest manuscripts with the African text of Primasius, but they are evidently from the same revised Greek text as the Vulgate and differ in vocabulary only for the most part. This revised Greek text was so, I believed, based on an Aramaic original. So notice he says this revised Greek text. It is possible the base text was a Latin translation derived from a primitive Aramaic text, and that the Vulgate infusions modified this primitive base, but left it is still basic in the main. Such a Latin text may have come directly from the east into Egypt in the early centuries, or it may have come into Spain with the Moors from Syria by way of North Africa. It is remarkable that the illustrations of our manuscript, the crescent, is constantly used for decorative purposes.
Anyway,
and many of the pictures of churches in our manuscripts show more like Oriental mosques than Roman basilicas. The painting of folio 183 of the Scriptorium, where
fascinating to read.
Okay, then
here's
in the Latin, so we're looking at Justus es qui fuisti et futurus es in sanctus.
Another copy.
Okay, and then we have down here. No, that's verse 13.
Here you can see there's some critical text here, but there's nothing of interest when it comes to our verse. When you see the Justus es qui fuisti et futurus es and sanctus. Notice this sanctus here is a nomina sacra. This one is sanctus in a nomina sacra form, SCS with an overline. But you know, that's
quite interesting. It almost looks like Osios there, doesn't it? Essius. Anyway,
that's because sanctus is a holy word. That's the reason for having a nomina sacra there. In any event, that's an actual nomina sacra as opposed to what we've been discussing. Here's some more materials. Here's the a more colorful version of what Nick had in his book. Unfortunately, Nick's book was printed in black and white, so you couldn't see the original colors. But here's this. This is the same same illustration you can see in Nick's book, just in more vivid color here. I think I can zoom back out so you can see more of it at the same time. So you can see it's very beautiful. He's got his vial here. He's about to pour on the waters. You can see there's some similarity between this illustration and this illustration. There's the way that the waters are depicted. I think a third of them are blood already at this point, or are becoming blood. But anyway, you see some similar pattern laid out here. And
so in that picture, that's where it has the future form, which is equivalent to isomonos twice. So it has it in the commentary, which people say goes back to Tychonius in 380, and it also has it in the main text. And so regardless of whether you think that is Vulgate or Vulgate corruption or whatever, it is in the Latin text, and it is in the Latin commentary that goes back to 380. The future form of shalt be, which is equivalent to isomonos, which Theodore Beza has in his text.
More manuscripts. This is now, we're getting into Hymo. Let's see. We're going to be discussing Hymo. Halberstadt is how it's being cited by Nick. And interestingly, this text is Hymo, but it's apparently falsely ascribed to him. That won't matter for our purposes, whether it's falsely or not ascribed, but that's just a word of warning to folks that it might be falsely ascribed. And I'm not going to get into it because I don't think ultimately, for our purposes, it matters whether this Hymo is the actual Hymo Halberstadtensis or it's someone else. The actual Hymo Halberstadtensis was, as Nick says, a 9th century German, 9th century German bishop. Whether it was him or not isn't really the point. Then he quotes extensively from the KJV Today website, which provides some discussion of the Latin, and he provides a translation of the Latin. And let's see, at the end of the quotation from the website, Nick says, this is another strong reference to the future aspect of the Triadic Declaration, but White again shrugs this off. But with the recent discovery of the Jerome quotation, it's perfectly plausible that the commentary was written concerning a reading Jerome had. This is something White mocked in his exposure of the Yellow Post. I won't go into the Yellow Post too much right now, although maybe at some point it would be fun to do. But I just want to point out to Nick, I know in one of my previous videos that Nick recently responded to, Nick pointed out that he had made a comment in a footnote that he felt I had missed, and maybe I did miss it. And so I don't remember commenting on it at least. So it's here at page 120, and I'll read it here for anyone who's listening to me who doesn't also listen to Nick, which I don't know if it's a big set of people, but here it is. This is footnote 128 on page 120. It says, it must be acknowledged that some of the quotations allude directly, and I think I pointed out that you can't allude directly. You can either allude or you can directly point to. Allude directly to Revelation 16.
So just about the alluding directly, I mean, what I'm saying is all of these verses have a direction of which they allude to. And so they allude either directly to Revelation 16:5 or to I am or to Jehovah. So it's a bit like having 3 doors that you can go down. They allude to one of those choices. So I'm saying allude means and directly, it's sort of like a term that they cancel each other out. It's it doesn't make sense. That's to allude directly. It's like saying if you vote for Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian, they will all allude directly to the military-industrial complex. It's just something that you can say.
Others to I am and Jehovah, and some to both. Due to the related nature of these instances, all are considered significant in this examination. Well, you seem to use that to deflect my criticism that so far, up to this point, until we discussed Beatus, none of the other examples, well, there's the papyrus, which is an actual witness to the text. But aside from the papyrus, which was an actual witness to the text, until we got to Beatus, all of the other ones were not witnesses to the text.
And so notice now it's not witnesses from early church writers, witnesses from versional evidence, it's witness to the text. So he's saying it has to be the Greek text now. So notice he set up another straw man argument that I'd never claimed. I never said, okay, we're only just going to look at the Greek now, because I go through Latin. I mentioned Greek, Latin, and the only reason I mentioned the Greek first was because that was the oldest, and I tried to put it in a bit of a chronological sequence, and I didn't put it in a sequence that was of importance, or else I just would have gone straight to Beatus of Libana, Hamo Halberstadensis, then the Ethiopic, and then perhaps to Erasmus, and then I would have gone through other things. I've just gone, okay, well, here's the evidence, and I've put the footnote saying some allude directly to Revelation 16:5, some allude to I am and Jehovah. It's pretty clear, and some allude to both. So I don't know why TurretinFan's sort of fighting against this. See, the thing is, in my original article, I didn't have a lot of this other information. I just had allusions to, like, directly, Hamo Halberstadensis, Beatus of Libana, the Ethiopic, and then a couple here and there of early church writers, and mostly talking about Jehovah. But then over time, people were sending me more and more information. So I just thought, well, I may as well put it in the book, because it's like I was studying, only a couple of days ago, and in Revelation 16:5 here. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff on my website that I could have put in the book. So, Basil of Caesarea, I don't think I put that in there. Or maybe I did. But when we look at, where are we? Thomas Aquinas. Because, see, the thing is, it doesn't seem to matter what evidence I show. It's wrong, and it's put in there wrong, and it's not in the right thing. So say if I was to talk about Thomas Aquinas, just say I put that in the next edition of my book. I could see TurretinFan will go, oh, Thomas Aquinas, this is obviously isn't an early church writer. So, well, yeah, why bring that up? I'm going through and showing evidence before Beza. That's all I'm doing. And I'm showing you evidence of Jehovah, the name of Jehovah, sometimes reading exactly as Revelation 16:5 reads in Beza's text. Then I'm showing you where there are commentaries of Revelation 16:5, versional evidence of Revelation 16:5, having the future readings and things like that. And so I'm being pretty specific about what I'm saying. So here in Thomas Aquinas, this is just what I found the other night, and I haven't really even thought that much about it, but it clearly has here, for there is said of him that was, so it's said of him talking about God, because it says in sacred scripture himself, who truly pre-exists all things, is praised by many ways according to every ratio of existing things. For there is said of him. Where's it said of him? In sacred scripture. What was and is and shall be. Now, where's that verse in the Bible? Through which there is understood what has been made, that is the past, and what is made, that is the present, and what shall be made, that is the future. So you can't say that that's a mistranslation from whatever. It's clearly talking about the past, present, and future. It's clearly talking pretty much exactly the same as Revelation 16:5, except you have the past and the present are swapped around at Revelation 16:5, where it has the past first, the present first, the past second, and the future third. And so, but the thing is, TurretinFan would look at that and go, yeah, well, that's just a coincidence or whatever. It's like, is that pointing to Jehovah? Perhaps. Is it pointing to Revelation 16:5? Perhaps. Is it evidence that we're looking at? Definitely. So why are you making such a big deal if I copy and paste that into my next edition of the book? Why are you like, oh, well, just trying to sort of demonize it? You know what I mean? Just look at it and go, is it dealing with Revelation 16? Does it have the reading of Revelation 16:5? Does it have the future reading? Could it be relative to Revelation 16:5? Or if you have a presupposition that this reading doesn't exist anywhere on the planet, no, it never has existed. No, it's a conjecture. See, the thing is, I'm hearing TurretinFan's still say that it's a conjectural emendation, and it's just like, oh man, it's just it gets quite annoying. But anyway, let's continue.
They were of interest to Nick, but they were not witnesses to the text. And he said, well, you're ignoring some of these are about the I am statements. Well, Heimo Halber, the way he cites him is as Heimo Halber Stadensis. As I said, it may be pseudo Heimo. But anyway, this author, and you can see that the text begins down here, and I heard the angel of the waters, that is, etc., etc. It starts here at the bottom of column 1128 of this volume, and it continues down through like around the middle between C and D at the column 1129. So less than a column of text, but here's the kind of the Latin text transcribed, and then here's a translation of the text. And the key part, really, when it comes right down to it, the key part is this part. Dissentum justis es qui eras sanctus. Now, you'll notice this is a bit different from the text of that we've seen other places. It's a shorter reading. You are just which eras sanctus. So that's which have been holy. So this was just a past tense, no future, no present tense.
So I'm not sure what he's reading from there, but okay, I'll go to Heimo Halberstadensis here in the edition that I've got, because the thing is too, it's like you can sure find another edition that has a different reading. But okay, so maybe what I'll do, I'll just read through what I've got here. Now, TurretinFan might even do that, but sometimes what he does, he gets one or two words into it, and he's already sort of trying to demonize it. And it's like, well, half the time this is just like something that you'd find in Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, a Bruce Metzger, writing about what Heimo Halberstadensis' work is. It's just common knowledge. So Heimo Halberstadensis, Commentaria in Apocalypsen, is a commentary of the Book of Revelation written in the 9th century, written by the 9th century German Bishop Heimo Halberstadensis. And then we've got the picture and translation by KJV today. So we see it has written here, ides, that is, pre-terito, pre-senito, and futuro. So we're looking at the commentary here, okay? And it has qui eris, justice, or you are just, s, and eris. So we know that eris is to do with the future form. Okay, so the website KJV today says the term from dissentum to eris translated into English is, so that's from where's dissentum? Here in the brackets. So we see in the brackets here. So all the way through down to eris here are translated here, saying, "Thou art just, who were holy." In times past, it is used here for 3 times. That is, for the past, present, and future. Who were holy are and shall be just, who were holy, are and shall be just. Okay, so it's interesting. It's got the holy here in the past, and in the present it just says are and shall be, and it has just here. Okay. There are two interesting features of this commentary. First, this is KJV today. First, a quotation of the biblical text, Dissentum Justus est qui eris sanctus, is not Beza's conjectured reading. So notice, even KJV today, most people were saying it was a conjecture up until I'd written my book. So this was written before my book. However, it is neither the reading found in the existing manuscripts nor in the Vulgate. The reading being translated, you are just, who were holy, is missing the clause, and who are, Latin equiesce. The Vulgate reads, Dissentum justus est, qui es et qui eris sanctus. Secondly, the commentary includes the sentence, who were holy and shall be just, including the verbs eris, es, and eris. The association of justice with the past, present, and future only occurs at Beza's Revelation 16:5. Okay, so the previous Tradic declarations at 1:4, 1:8, 4:8, and 11:17 do not associate the formula with God's justice. Hamo's commentary carries the sense of Beza's Latin translation of his 1598 Greek Textus Receptus, which reads, Justus est Domine qui es, et qui eris, et qui eras, et qui eris. Beza chose eris as the Latin translation of esomenos shall be, which is also the Latin word in Hamo's commentary. Hamo used eris shall be for the future rather than venturus est, which is to come, despite the previous occurrences of the formula in Revelation 1:4, 1:8, 4:8, in the Vulgate having venturus est as the future. It appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text as conjectured by Beza, and whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary took the commentary section from the original commentary and took the biblical text from a faulty version of the Vulgate. Now, TurretinFan's seems to make a big fuss about this and say, oh, the guy from KJV today is wrong, and he wants to be anonymous, which is wrong, even though TurretinFan's name is Turret. I don't even know TurretinFan's real name. You know what I mean? It's just sort of like, why? just let this guy. I mean, if you want to be called a Ruckmanite and just smeared and told that you're dangerous and probably have churches, try and kick you out of your church because Mark Ward, has rung up the pastor and said that you believe in the King James Bible. I mean, if you want all that rubbish happening, which does happen. I've had people contact me saying, well, I've just, and these are TR people. I've just had a whole bunch of elders rebuke me and call me a King James onlyist. And I actually believe in the Textus Receptus Greek. I don't follow the King James. I follow the TR, but apparently they're saying I'm a King James only. They're bringing out Mark Ward's book. They're bringing out James White's King James only controversy and saying I should really agree with what's written in these. And can you help me? And this is Reformed Baptist guys going through this. And so it's I totally understand people wanting to remain anonymous. For years and years, I ran the Textus Receptus page on Facebook. It's got about 7,500 people on there. And no one knew who I was. And there were just tons of people on. And we just used to focus on what was being said and facts and figures and all the rest of it. But then it's like it becomes, oh, this is Nick Sayers' thing. Oh, let's focus on, let's call Nick a liar and let's just try and dig dirt for, that's what James White did. He just tried to dig dirt. And I was like, man, how are you digging dirt from where you are in America? You know what I mean? And I selectively only put certain things about myself online. So how would you know anything about me? Really? You're just making it up. So anyway, so let's finish this. This is another strong reference to the future aspect of the Triadic Declaration. So notice I say the future aspect of the Triadic Declaration. The shall be aspect, the esomenos, very clear in each one of these that what I'm talking about. But White again shrugs this off. But with the recent discovery of the Jerome quotation, it is perfectly plausible that the commentary was written concerning a reading Jerome had. This is something White mocked in his exposure of the Yellow Post. And so I've showed the Yellow Post video quite a few times. And so let's get back into Turretin.
Just the past tense. So not a biadic declaration, just a monadic declaration. And
so he's obviously not reading it from my website because it clearly talks about id est pro praeterio praesenti et futuro. And then it has qui eris sanctus justus es et eris. So it's pretty clear what it's saying here. So, well, he's reading the text here, and no one's claimed that it's in the text. We've claimed that it's in the text in Beatus of Libana. We've claimed it's also in the commentary of Beatus of Libana. But in Hamo Halberstadensis, it's not in the main text, but it is in the commentary.
And Sanctus is still there. So it's another reading that's here. However, he makes a very interesting comment about that, which we'll see in just a second, or you may have already seen if you've been reading past where I was. You'll see it says, Praeteritum tempus positum est hic pro tribus temporibus id est pro praeteritu praesenti et futuro, qui eras sanctus justus es et eris. And the translation is, you are, of course, this isn't being translated, you are just who were holy. The past tense is placed here for 3 times. That is for the past, the present, and the future. Who were holy, you are just, and you will be. So he's saying that the sense of this encompasses all 3 time periods. Now, I understand that for Nick, this is significant, and this would, within Nick's footnote of some of them are somehow related to both, this would seem to be one of those, these are related to both. Let's see.
And so, like, had TurretinFan read my footnote and understood that, he wouldn't have gone through all, I think it's like 14 places. You know, I could probably add another 10 places just from stuff on my website. But, like, I didn't even go to Psalm 119, where of what the angel's quoting. You are righteous, thou art righteous, O Lord, and just are your judgments, or something like that. And it's like, that's what the angel was quoting. And so it has O Lord there, it has, has the name Jehovah there. But let's continue.
So, as far as being a witness to an underlying text, this doesn't seem to be a witness to the text of the TR. If anything, Justus est.
It doesn't seem to be a witness to the text of the TR. Okay, so, well, I guess, he's looking at the underlying text here, which is pretty much just what the Vulgate has, I'm pretty sure.
Qui eris sanctus is more easily explained from the original Greek than from the TR, both because it has sanctus, it doesn't have dom.
So no one's claiming that it's in the main text. They're claiming it's in the commentary.
And it has qui eris, just one. It's easier to see this as just a simplification of what's there.
And so notice this as well, qui eris, which is just the past tense, I'm pretty sure. Let's just go to Google Translate. You who were, okay. And so notice it's not a triadic declaration. It's not a dyadic declaration. Now, I better type it out perfectly here. Okay, so you are just who were holy. And notice it's pretty clear. The past tense here is placed here for 3 times. That is for past, present, and future. Who were holy. You are just and you will be. Who were holy. You are just and you will be. So it's pretty clear in, like, yeah, this is quite an amazing commentary. Anyway, let's let TurretinFan continue. He might bring out some other things.
Or a translational choice. Or both. Now, his interpretation that that in the past tense, this conveys the sense of 3 times, past, present, and future. This is interesting because it seems to connect with the idea that Nick has that this is the name Jehovah, and that the name Jehovah conveys all 3 parts.
Mic drop. Bang. Exactly. And so this Beatus of Libana, the Ethiopic, yeah, these are mentioned in Hoskia's work. And a lot of the other things, like I've never seen anywhere, like, but they're dealing with the past, the present, and the future. And so some of them you can't just dismiss that that's not talking about Revelation 16:5. If TurretinFan came around and went, well, maybe it does read that, and then he read back through those other places, he would see why I put them in there. But because he's like, no, this is just a conjecture, this is just made up by Beza, it only has the past and the present, doesn't have any future, doesn't have a someone else there, that's made up, that's a mistranslation of the NA 28 or whatever. He's just, it's like he's never going to see it.
And that the fact is that Hymo or pseudo-Hymo, whichever it is, it doesn't really matter, is also making the same connection. And that's great. But notice that although...
Okay, that's great, but...
He gives this as an explanation of the text, he's not suggesting this is the text. For him, yeah,
but you have to explain the rise of how this got to be like that. Notice he's basically putting holy over, like he's nullifying the present and the future. He's only showing the past. So we see in the Greek, they're nullifying the future form. In the Latin of Beatus of Libana, then nullifying the present form. In this Homo halberstadensis, they're nullifying the present form and the future form. So can't you see that this obviously this is a type of, this is a name, and that they all feel that something needs to be modified somewhere, and having Sanctus there is showing and pointing to a nomen sacrum.
Definitively, the text is this, and just the explanation of the text is the other things. And on top of that, his explanation of the text is to put the Justus S together with the Eris, and then to put the future for Sanctus, and to reorder things a bit in his explanation. But that's looking more like the old Latin that we saw above. If you'll remember, we had Justus Est, Justus Est, and then now here we had Qui Fisti et Futurus Est, And now, instead, this is gone, and qui eris is present, and qui eris is present. But the way that it's done is these are placed with sanctus, and these are, and Justus is placed with Justus and with eris, if I remember correctly. I have to go back down and try not to do it from memory so much. So Justus is with eris, and eros is with sanctus. So you who were holy, the past gets associated with sanctus, and then the present and future with Justus. But it's not exactly like the Old Latin in that Spanish edition, which probably came from North Africa, which we don't know for sure. Best guess, it may have come from North Africa, may have been a translation of Greek. Now, it'd be more complicated if it's not a translation of Greek, but a translation of some intermediate language, because then there's multiple layers of translational decisions. However, we don't need to go there. That's just the end. Oh, I haven't read what the KJV Today website said. So he says, there are two interesting features of this commentary. The first, the quotation of the biblical text is not Beza's conjectured reading. However, it is neither the reading found in the existing manuscripts nor in the Vulgate. The reading being translated, "You are just who were holy," is missing the clause, "and who are." The Vulgate reads, "Descentum Justus est qui es et qui eras sanctus." Second, the commentary includes the sentence, "who were holy are and shall be just," using the verbs eros, es, and eris. The association of justice with the past, present, and future only occurs in Beza's Revelation 16:5. The previous triadic declarations do not associate the formula with God's justice. Haimo's commentary text carries the sense of Beza's Latin translation of his 1598 Greek Textus Receptus, which reads Justus est Domine, qui es et eris, qui eris et qui eris. Beza chose eris as the Latin translation of Asomenos, which is also the Latin word in Haimo's commentary. Haimo used eris for the future rather than venturis est, is to come, despite the previous occurrences of the formula in the Vulgate having venturis est as the future. It appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text as conjectured by Beza. No, it doesn't. I don't know where this author... Unfortunately, the author isn't available to take comments, but I just have to say, I appreciate the need for people to have their anonymity.
So listen to this. He's talking about the author of the KJV Today website.
But I just have to say, I appreciate the need for people to have their anonymity. I used to be more anonymous than I am now with my face and voice and so forth out there. And I'm sure people have good reasons for doing it. But unfortunately, the problem is when he says, it appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text as conjectured by Beza, the answer there is absolutely not. That's nonsense. It's undoubted that it did not. The entire reason for making this statement, the past tense is placed here for three times, meaning for the past, the present, and the future, is discussing the fact that the scripture text has just the past tense there. That suggests that does not make it appear as though the original included the biblical text as conjectured by Beza. And says, whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary took the commentary section of the original commentary and took the biblical text from a faulty version of the Vulgate. No. I don't know what happened with the KJV Today's author, but no, it's just wildly wrong. So, not sure what to...
So, I mean, the thing is, if TurretinFan read through all of KJV Today's conclusions, as even just on Revelation 16:5, but also in most other places, he would learn quite a lot and realize that this guy is he's a polyglot. He speaks several languages. He's a very intelligent man. He has studied the original languages, Greek and Hebrew. You can tell from reading his material. I get contacted by lots of people saying, can you tell me the name of the guy who runs this website? And I sometimes contact him and say, look, this person wants to know why you've written this on your website or whatever. And sometimes we chat. We chat a bit on Facebook every now and then. Sometimes if I've got a problem or an issue, I might point out something. But it's his prerogative to remain anonymous. I mean, TurretinFan has TurretinFan, doesn't have his own name there. But let's see if it was unreasonable what was written there. Let's just have a quick read of this. So it says, it appears, and notice that, it appears as though the original commentary so usually when you're saying things like it appears or perhaps, or TurretinFan seems to overlook some of the language here. It appears as though, like, so to someone like the man who's written the KJV Today website, his own personal opinion is that it appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text as conjectured by Beza. So he's saying that for this person, it looks as though the original commentary had the whole reading of past, present, and future, because that's exactly what he talks about. And then listen to this. And whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary took the commentary section from the original commentary and took the biblical text from a faulty version of the Vulgate with only the past reading there. So they're saying, okay, it's got the past reading, but it should read for the past, the present, and the future. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. That's not something that you would just, start screaming about or howling about, as I've written about James White. Let's just listen to what TurretinFan's says again.
KJV Today, the present edition of the commentary, took the commentary section of the original commentary and took the biblical text from a faulty version of Vulgate. No. I don't know what happened with the KJV Today's author, but no, it's just wildly wrong. So I'm not sure what to say beyond that.
Wildly wrong. He's just wrong. Wildly wrong. Why? Well, because of a presupposition that Beza's text just didn't exist. And so anything that sort of points that it could have existed, even if you have your own personal theory about that, it's just wildly wrong, because Beza made it up, and we're sticking to that narrative.
If that author was available, and if Nick's in contact with that person,
yeah, I'll definitely contact KJV Today. I'll point to this timestamp, so I'll just copy that. Okay. A note to self to contact. So let's continue.
And whoever it is, feel free to reach out to them and ask them how in the world they got it so completely wrong. But
how in the world they got it so completely wrong? I mean, do you really need him to come on board to explain it? Just slowly read through what's said in the commentary. It's saying that this section that's talking about the past really means the past, present, and the future. And so, I mean, is it that hard to think that, okay, that's the original reading? Because if we believe the Textus Receptus is the original reading, we come from that perspective when we're looking at everything. Just as much as you think that you're one with the Biadic Declaration and holy on the end of it is the original reading, and you read that into everything. And I try and do both things so I can put myself into your shoes, but you've got to take your shoes off and put your feet into our shoes and say, okay, what if this is an original reading? Would someone who was writing a commentary, could they have looked at a section of the Vulgate that only had the past in it, and then they have known that it actually has the past, present, and the future, and they've written, well, this should really point to the past, present, and the future. I mean, is it that out of the realm of possibility? Is that just wild speculation? I don't think it's wild speculation at all. And what I find is the KJV Today website material is very good. It's very balanced and it's very well thought out. And some of the best scholars in the TR circles that contact me and say, who is this guy? This guy's brilliant. This guy's amazing. And I've had people who are fluent in modern Greek say, this guy knows his stuff. They enjoy reading his material because he knows his Greek so well.
Everybody makes mistakes, and
it's not a mistake.
In fact, I think in one previous episode, I had suggested that that a present participle form of to be should be translated as a present indicative form of to be, and I was off on that point, and that was just in maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago. So we all make mistakes. Anyway, leave that there. We all make mistakes. Hopefully, we can move on past that. God willing, in this series, the next piece of evidence will be Desiderius Erasmus. That's number 13 in the list. I anticipate this will be an interesting topic. Then Miles Coverdale, which I think will be completely uninteresting, at least for me. And then the 1549 Ethiopic, which should be very interesting for everyone because this gets a lot of attention. And that will end, once we do that, those 3 sections, that will end chapter 3, which is really, I think, the meat and potatoes of Nick's book. And we will be kind of going downhill from there in terms of coming to easier sections to read, review, and move through. I saw that James had commented on my tweet, on my tweet announcement of the previous episode, suggesting that what was his wording? He's like, "There's no purgatory. You don't have to keep doing this." I think his idea being that I'm working off some years of purgatory. I think I'm working off some years of purgatory by doing this series. And although I can appreciate that, I think obviously he doesn't enjoy this specific book. At least if I do it, he doesn't have to, perhaps. Or if I do it, he can listen to what I have to say, and if that helps him provide a more succinct response later on, also wonderful. And likewise, this may benefit Nick as well. So lots of people could benefit.
So it looks like James White is aware of all these videos. I guess he's seen TurretinFan constantly. This is like part 15. I think he's done a part 16, and so James White's commenting on these, and so saying it's like purgatory going through this. But I mean, there's a lot of information that's just being completely ignored. And so why not focus on those strong evidences? We just looked at Beatus of Libana. We just looked at Homo halberstadensis. These have to be acknowledged as pointing to the future reading.
Hopefully people do. I do appreciate the people who have been watching, listening, commenting, including my jocular friend Jason, who says he took a call. What did he miss? In summary, what you missed is, I know he's just kidding, but what you missed was just we discussed the very interesting to me Beatus of Libana, which has a reading which differs from the TR and differs from the original Greek. The explanation.
So notice that it differs from the TR, differs from the original Greek. But in my book, I clearly say it is the same as the future reading. So that's why I'm saying this is strawman argumentation. Because in my book, I'm clearly stating what it's similar to, but he's only pointing out what it's not similar to. And he's not agreeing with what I'm saying, that it's similar to Asomenos. It's similar to Et Eris. It's what's equivalent, And so that should be the first thing admitted. Yes, this does have the future reading.
Nation for that difference could be just a translational difference from the original Greek.
It could be just a mistake. So here's strong evidence. It's just a mistake. Like that's not the signs of professional evaluation of the evidence. The evaluation of the evidence, you would look at what people are saying about this. Herman Hoskia is saying that this is evidence of the future form of the reading.
In other words, how to translate the tenses of the Greek to Latin. That could be the reason. Could be an underlying different Greek exemplar. It's possible.
So it could just be that the Latin guys just made a mistake and you would expect that of English people, wouldn't you? They'd say the past, the present, and the future, but they would just say the past and the present instead of the future. or they'd say the future instead of the present. People don't make those type of mistakes, unless there's something wrong with them. And so why would you assume that that's happening here? Why go right down to the gutter level and bring up this type of drivel? Because that's just, sure, anything's possible. The moon could be made out of cheese for all we know. But at the end of the day, it's like you just got to go with the proof. And the proof is that the future reading is there.
But that's where we have that. And then we talked about Hymo, who's, unfortunately, the KJV Today website made a serious blunder.
A serious blunder now. So it's not just the KJV Today website said that, this is his conclusion, that, and to me it's a quite a logical conclusion, that the underlying text could have been the whole expansion, and then him having only just the one reading of the past and explaining, well, this means the past, the present, and the future here, etc. It's not a huge, massive blunder, and I'm not sure why he's saying that. I think it's just because TurretinFan, like I was saying in my last video, he seems to have, in every evidence that's brought up, he's like got 15 little tick boxes, and it's like, well, okay, let's look at this other thing. Let's look at this other thing over here. This other thing. Instead of just dealing with what I'm saying and dealing with what the KJV Today website is saying, because I do quote him quite significantly here, or quite generously here. And so instead of just dealing with what he's saying, he's going all over the place with it. Look at what it says. It appears. So with all this evidence, have you just read through the evidence? Where else in all of the previous triadic declarations is he talking about the justice of God? So you've got to take that into consideration. And he's saying it appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text. So notice the original commentary, okay? It included the biblical text as conjectured by Beza. So he's saying it's a conjecture. I would just say the biblical text as written by Beza according to his manuscript evidence and other internal evidences. And whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary took the commentary section from the original commentary and took the biblical text from a faulty version of the Vulgate. So he's just saying there seems to be a separation from the main text and the commentary, okay? And but he does seem to mention this. And so the commentary, the modern commentary reflects on the text, but also on what an original commentary was talking about. That's not wild. That's not a crazy mistake. That is something that appears or is apparent if you weigh up all this information.
It made a serious blunder in terms of explaining the relationship of the discussion in the commentary text. But in any event, we will we'll let that be what it is. I understand Nick was reliant on that author, and the author let him down. It's not on Nick.
Nick was reliant on that author, and the author let him down. So him having his own conclusion and saying, well, this is what I think happened. Well, it's just wild speculation. You see what I mean? This is ridiculous. It's sort of getting to the point where this is absolutely ridiculous. So let's look at some of these points. Okay, so I'll just grab a maybe a quick little, if I can open this up. So I'm just going to grab these points that are made by KJV Today. To explain it and just to show you how it's not this massively wild thing that that TurretinFan's trying to make it out to be. So after this, I'm going to go because it's getting late here and I'm extremely tired. So this is what's apparent to him. Okay, from looking at all the evidence, it appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of the conjecture by Beza because we know it's not conjecture. Okay. So it appears that the original commentary included the biblical text. So the original commentary that was being copied, it had the past, the present, and the future. Okay. And whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary, so whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary, let me just go down here, took the commentary section from the original commentary. Okay, so we've got a secondary witness to a commentary quoting the original commentary, and took the biblical text from a faulty version of the Vulgate. So someone is seeing the past, present, and future in the commentary. They're looking at the Vulgate and going, well, it's only got this one aspect, which whether that's a faulty version, because you've got to understand that the KJV Today website, this is before the whole thing of Theodore Beza saw that it was an ominous sacra, and my concepts in the book and everything, because I'm quoting it. So obviously it's before my time, and the things that in my book were not really well known to anyone. So it wouldn't be considered like a faulty version of the Vulgate, but it would be considered a different version of the Vulgate, where it just has the past. Okay, so is that true? The Vulgate, it just has the past there. Okay, so do you think it's true that he probably took the commentary section from the original commentary about the past, present, future? The guy who did the present edition of the commentary. Okay, so is it far-fetched to think that if it has the past, present, and the future, that the original commentary could have looked something like Theodore Beza's text? Okay, so let's read through this again. It appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text by Beza. So that's what it appears, that the original commentary included the biblical text by Beza. Why are we saying that? Let's have a quick look. Because it says, thou art just who were holy. Okay, so who were, and then holy. In times past, it is used here for 3 times. That is, for past, for present, and future. Who were holy, are, and shall be. So it's got the 3 aspects there. It's got the 3 aspects here. So in times past is used here 3 times. That is for the past. And so here it has were. It has present, are. It has future, and shall be. Just. Okay. And so it appears as though the original commentary included the biblical text of Beza. Doesn't that make sense? The one which art and wast and shall be. The 3 aspects of Beza. And whoever compiled the present edition of the commentary took the commentary section from the original commentary and took the biblical text from a different version of the Vulgate. I mean, that's pretty much what he's saying there. Is that wild? Is that something that I'm like, oh, I'm embarrassed because I copied his idea into the book? Absolutely not. This is just a sound logical conclusion of the evidence. This is what it appears happened. It's way better than TurretinFan's like, oh, it's just an error. They probably just mistranslated it. But yeah, how is he explaining the rise of this variant? He's not. Where the whole concept of this being a nomina sacra, the whole concept of this being the expanded name of Jehovah, the whole concept of this being a noun phrase that people wanted to modify and turn into a nomen sacrum, turn into a name with the word holy there, so that people wouldn't say it at the wrong place or at the wrong time. I mean, that's there. That's in the evidence. So what is TurretinFan offering? Nothing really. He's just saying, oh, it's just wrong. And the KJV Today guy is just off the wall. Now, I'm sure that if the KJV Today guy had labeled his website, Reformation Text and Canon, defense website or something like that, he would be considered a lot more scholarly. But because it's KJV Today, it's like, it's to do with the King James. And that's the whole thing with Edward Hills, because his first book was called Text and Time, and then he amended it to the King James Version Defended, I'm pretty sure it's called. And so, and a lot of people, that's for a more popular audience, but a lot of people in academia are they're repulsed by that. So I guess TurretinFan, instead of actually looking at what's said, he's judging him, saying, "Oh, KJV Today, who is it? Wilkiny? Who is it?" Just people who they don't have any respect for. So let's continue.
That's on that author. So let's see. What other comments, questions? Oh, Big Yehuda said it helped. Great. Algo says hi to everyone, to me, to Doki, and to Big Yehuda. He would have said it's a page, but Jason wasn't here yet at that time when he sent that comment. And he says, I missed the start. I was busy watching T-Fan versus Syngenis debate again from last summer. So Algo, you may notice what recently popped into my mind when watching that is Syngenis made the same argument in that debate as he did in the debate on the Assumption with James White, which is he went to Acts 15 and then claimed that Acts 15 was decided based on scriptures that have nothing to do with circumcision. And then just kind of doggedly insisted on that point, even though I'm pretty sure when he debated James White, it was several years before he debated me. And James White pointed out to him the relationship between the text and circumcision. And I guess he just didn't understand, or, I mean, maybe he understood and doesn't agree. I don't know. But there was some, I ended up having to make the same explanation to him again in my debate with him as James had made in his debate with him. So I'm not sure how to explain that, except that evidently, Syngenis thinks that's a good argument. So maybe I can do at some point, separate episodes specifically on that issue. But it wasn't a point of interest to me hearing that. I listened to that in preparation for some additional bodily assumption episodes. I'm going to get a chance to do those, but we'll see. It would be lovely to, if I end up sticking with my same conclusions, it might be interesting to have a debate with Nick on Revelation 65, if he's up for it after so many back and forth. I mean, he's on.
I'll gladly debate this. And I think, after going through all this, I'm going to, search for more texts like I did the other day. I found about another 5 texts that speak about the past, present, and future. The Thomas Aquinas one seemed to be the one that was very clear that it was written in Scripture, that it explained in Scripture that God was the past, present, and future, and is and was and shall be. And that's not a Google Translate. That's a professional translator writing that. And so,
I think his own 13th response to me, and I've had this.
So I'll gladly debate TurretinFan on this issue.
My 15th episode responding to his book. So anyone who wanted to follow along would have listened to literally days of audio in order to hear both sides discuss everything. Could we summarize that in a debate format that would be useful to people? I think we could, but I'm not even done with the book yet. So we still have multiple episodes to go. I'm sure I won't get through the rest of the book in a single episode. In fact, I'm not sure I'll get through the rest of the chapter in a single episode. It might be 2 or more episodes, probably not 3. The Miles Coverdale material is very limited, so that would probably just go with one or the other of the Ethiopic and Erasmus. Erasmus, I hope, will be an interesting section. But anyway, I look forward to soldiering on with this series and as well preparing for 2 debates that are coming up within the next month. So this may end up having to go to the back burner anyway as I do the other debate preparations. But thank you all for listening. Thanks, Jason, Algo, Big Yehuda, and Doki Doki Bible Club. God be with you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to go as well. So thanks for joining us, guys. God bless you. This only went for 2 hours, not 5. So a little bit easier to follow. But I'm going to go. God bless you, and thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon, and hopefully I can catch up with the debates, which are all the responding to TurretinFan's response of my book, and then I can move on to some of the eschatological issues that I've been dealing with, and also finish the James White Thomas Ross debate material that I've been going through. And also we'll do some more Sinaiticus stuff, and it'd be great to do another lesson on the Textus Receptus. So I'm up to Matthew chapter 1 and verses 16, and also like verse 17 and 18 as well. So I'll end it there. God bless you guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again another time.